On this week's episode of Ask Dan, we talk about Thunderbolt 3 and Microsoft's aversion to it, and should the company sell its own Android phone? Stay tuned. Why is Microsoft so cautious about implementing Thunderbolt 3 ports in Surface devices? With the release of Surface Book 2, Microsoft has finally USB Type-C 3.1, but that's not Thunderbolt 3. Now, this is a complicated specification. Thunderbolt 3 is kind of evolving. Intel has just announced some changes recently. For instance, if you do Thunderbolt 3 as a manufacturer, you have to license the technology, plus you have to build the chip and module into the motherboard. That takes up space, so you have to consider engineering. You're going to lose some battery. There's a lot of kind of issues around it. You don't get Thunderbolt 3 for free, and I mean that in a literal sense. Plus, there's this issue of PCIe lanes. Some devices are dual PCIe lanes, some are quadruple. You want quadruple because that's going to give you the full bandwidth using that port for external GPUs. Dell uses 2x lanes, and that's kind of problematic. You can use an eGPU, but it'll max out, and you may not be able to connect external peripherals to it. So it's a little bit complicated. Now, Microsoft cited enterprise as being an issue for USB Type-C and Thunderbolt 3 specifically, that they weren't really caught up to it. They weren't ready to buy all new peripherals for it, and there's some truth to that, but I think Microsoft was caught a little bit off guard with that because enterprise is moving closer to Thunderbolt 3 faster than expected. Now, Microsoft's still going to release that Surface Connect to Type-C adapter. I don't expect that to first quarter 2018 though. They're actually re-engineering it a little bit because they're concerned about power draw, it getting too hot, and what it's going to be able to do when you connect it up to AC and try to charge a device with it. They're also going to be working closely with enterprise for it, and they seem to be positioning it for those kind of companies. Having said that, we're going to have to wait till the next generation until Microsoft fully embraces Thunderbolt 3, but by then the ecosystem should be more mature. In order to get 4K on the Xbox One X, do you need a 4K and HDR TV? So this is a kind of fun question. There's a lot of issues around buying a 4K and HDR TV. I talk more about this in episode 29 of Ask Dan, so make sure you go check that out where I go into more detail. The short answer though is no. You only need a 4K TV if you want 4K gaming. HDR is nice to have, but it's not necessary. I will say though, most 4K TVs, or a lot of the ones that go from mid-range to high-range, already do have HDR built in. It's not really considered to be a bigger deal once you're hitting that 4K and hitting premium panel levels. But yeah, you don't need HDR. It's nice to have. I wouldn't say it's game-changing, but once you do go to it, especially if you use an OLED display, it's pretty awesome. Could Microsoft go the route of Blackberry and make Android devices? So it's a great question. We're asked it a lot with the demise of Windows 10 Mobile, or at least phones as we know them from Microsoft. Should they just create their own Android phone and sell it? I say no, and I don't think this is actually a realistic scenario for them. First of all, they have a couple options if they wanted to do this. They could go and make a white label phone, sort of what Blackberry is doing with Alcatel, but that would be kind of a generic device. It may be nice, but it's not going to be anything groundbreaking on it. The other route is they can bring in the Surface team, engineer this thing from scratch, and use all their prowess and powers to make it an awesome Android phone. That's going to take at least 18 months to make that happen. These processes are very long and they just can't do it overnight. So you have that problem, and I'm not really sure what the end goal here is. Samsung, LG, Huawei, OnePlus, even Razer are making awesome Android devices and really pushing boundaries on these things. What could Microsoft do here in the phone that would be so radically different in terms of hardware? Then there's the problem with Android itself, which totally undermines Windows 10 and UWP. Now, they do create apps for Android and iOS, that's true. That ties into their own services though, and also connects back up to Windows 10, and that helps. I think they'd rather not have to do that than have to do it. Still, I don't see them selling their own Android phone anytime soon. There's just too many obstacles, not enough return, and that market is super crowded already. I just don't see how they could really stand out. Don't forget, whatever you can do with a Samsung phone to make it a Microsoft Samsung phone, you could do on your own for free as it is today on any Android device. So I'm not really sure what they would bring to the table that would be so radically different here. So that does it for this week's episode. Remember, if you have a question, use hashtag AskDanWindows on Twitter, or go to our Ask Dan forums at Windows Central. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. TVs again with the Xbox One X. I asked, what was it, 4K? 4K. It was the phone. What was the second question? The first question. What was the first question?